Yes. Eh, hano yabonetse. Eh, eh, eh. Eh, eh. Check. Gawin yun. Yes. Oh. Ah.
muzane nta kindi kintu kiri gisigaye jack cyangwa jack kumara.
Ay.
something that has been cited and referred to more than 5,000 times. So it's really a very important publication explaining us that in Africa, but also otherwise in other parts of the world, it's really the wildlife reservoir that is at the origin of zoonotic diseases, meaning diseases that are passing from the animal reservoir to people. And so there are different ways by which these diseases can pass to people. Either they can pass directly by contact or via food, or they can pass via an intermediate host. For example, if you have disease in wildlife reservoirs like bats, like rodents, like waterfowl, they first can pass in domestic animals, for example, pigs, poultry, and from then passing to people. Another way to be transmitted is via vector species like mosquitoes, like ticks. The disease can also pass from the reservoir in animals, is it wildlife or domestic, to people. But here is something that is very, very important to understand. It's not because there is a reservoir in animals, particularly wildlife, that the disease can be transmitted to humans and become something we call a pandemic, meaning an infection in people that is worldwide. There are conditions for this. And so there are different stages by which a disease can be transmitted from the animal reservoir to people. The first stage is that the reservoir remains in the animal population. A typical example of this is rabies. Rabies can infect people, and there are 50,000 deaths a year due to rabies, and the origin is always in the animal reservoir, mainly bites by stray dogs. So there is hardly any passage from the virus from one person to the other. In other words, a person that is infected with rabies doesn't infect another person. The cycle of infection is really always linked to direct contact with the animal. And then there is a next stage where the principal source of infection is still in the animal, but from time to time there is a passage between different human individuals. The first stage is when there is still an origin in the animal reservoir, but now there is a cycle within the human population, and this becomes the most important transmission cycle. And eventually, there is a cycle within the human population, regardless of the presence of a reservoir. And this is, for example, HIV/AIDS or coronavirus infections. So these infections have originated in the animal reservoir, but when they became pandemics, there is no need for an animal reservoir anymore because the infection is sustained in the human population. So that's very, very important to understand that this is like this, that infection can be transmitted, and to understand the mechanisms by which it can be a pandemic. And so this is actually the origin of the One Health concept, was really to make sure that human beings would be prepared for pandemics. And so the first International Congress on One Health took place in 2011. So as I mentioned to you, it's something that is rather recent. But the one that really introduced the concept of One Health is a US citizen. His name is Calvin Schwaber. He was a veterinary epidemiologist, and he understood really that there was a link there between disease and the transmission of disease between wildlife, livestock, and humans. And because of this, and perhaps you remember also that there has been some influenza pandemics, and influenza is a very, very, very dangerous type of disease because it can really, really spread easily between people. And again, there is a reservoir in in animals, particularly in waterfalls. And waterfalls can get into contact with migrating birds. Migrating birds can get into contact with poultry. And then during all these passages, there are mutations. And among all the mutations that are taking place, there is perhaps one that makes the virus more adapted to the new host. And this is valid for a new animal host, but it is also valid for human beings. And so this is why worldwide there is a system in place that surveys all influenza viruses with the idea to detecting mutation that would make the virus more prone to infect people. And so this is an effort that is coordinated by the WHO, the World Health Organization, but with the collaboration of other UN organizations like the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, and also the World Organization for Animal Health. And so you have all the information about what is in place in your presentations. And so it has become so important that there has even been a tripartite guide for addressing zoonotic diseases in the different countries, which is endorsed by the WHO, by the FAO, and by the OIE. So things are in place to make sure that we will be able to tackle new coming or forthcoming pandemic diseases. And as the world battles the coronavirus pandemic, it's worth remembering the pivotal role played by human-driven deforestation in emerging diseases such as SARS and HIV. And in order to with people, otherwise it will not work. And so the factors that are increasing zoonotic emergence are deforestation, illegal and poorly regulated wildlife trade, climate change, intensified agriculture and livestock production, and antimicrobial resistance. This is what the OIE tells us. And so, given this, the issue for us is really to be able to avert wildlife-borne infection diseases epidemic. And if we want to do this, it requires really that we take into account social and ecological drivers, and even, and this is really a big job, that we consider to redesign the global food system. So how can we explain this? Well, the fact is that, as I tried to convince you of, pandemics that are really important, like HIV/AIDS and COVID, have emerged in the animal reservoir. And we know that landscape change, among which deforestation, particularly for agricultural food production, but also for wild meat hunting and trade, are really important in that context, notwithstanding the fact that they are also related to contemporary ecological crises such as global warming and mass species extinction. And so these are our challenges. We have a population growth, and so we need to feed the population worldwide. We want to see the population in healthy condition. So we have also to combat the emergence of zoonotic diseases. The consumption of foods is very much related to products originated in animals. For example, nowadays yearly 50 billion poultry are slaughtered every year for human consumption, 1.5 billion cattle, 1.5 billion pigs, 4.5 billion sheep. And it's estimated that in the year 2050, there will be an increase of about 80% of consumption of meat originating from cattle, if nothing is changed. And this is, of course, completely not sustainable. This is why we have to change this. And deforestation is really important in that context, because if we want to feed all these animals, and particularly cattle, then we I mean, what people are doing is that they have to produce feedstocks for these animals. And this feedstock is mainly soya. And soya is mainly produced in South America, and to the point that, deforestation of the Amazon forest is really a huge problem linked to this type of human activities. So game hunting is also something that you have heard about and that is very much discussed as a potential driver for the emergence of diseases originating in the wildlife reservoir. And yes, of course, it's completely possible, even more so because for the last 30 years there has been a huge expansion of hunting and trade activity of wildlife. At the same time, transporting, marketing, butchering, and consumption was really something that gained importance, became a very important public health. Of course, some of these infections became really prevalent in the human population. And this is a very, very important point. We have to understand that although it makes a lot of sense to associate the emergence of diseases in the wildlife reservoir to what is happening to people, the mechanisms by which these things occur remain very, very poorly understood. And so if they are poorly understood, it means also that any type of mitigation action may also not be rightly targeted. And the take-home message at this point is also to understand that even though wildlife hunting and trade may be at the origin of some zoonoses, the risk that is posed by such activities is much lower than the risk posed by intensive livestock production systems. And so 40% of the ice-free terrestrial surface is for agricultural production, either grazing land or cropland, to produce cereal for or direct consumption, or to produce practically soy feedstock for I'm sorry, there is again such an echo, so please mute the microphone of those that are online, otherwise it's impossible to discuss. And so can you please mute microphones? Okay, so because we now understand that there are two main socio-economical drivers linked to human activities that are really prone to this possible transmission of infection to human, we have to limit human encroachment in wildlife territory. In other words, we do have to stop deforestation. And this will be achieved if and only if we are also able to transit to diets from livestock to vegetarian products. We have also to contain tropical wild meat trade by curbing urban wild meat demand. So that's very, very important too. But at the same time, we have to secure access for indigenous people and local communities. And last but not least, we have to improve biosecurity. So nowadays, 70% of the food that is harvested is actually not consumed by humans because it's wasted. So we have to do something to make sure that what we produce is also actually consumed by the human population. And so when we want to limit the encroachment in tropical wildland we have to promote a global transition to diet with that are low in livestock food sources. And we have also to understand that even though we will improve management practice and technologies, they will not avoid a net increase in farmer. And what is really, really very, very unfair is that in temperate region, the use of wildlife may be restricted. So I'm really sorry, but I hardly understand what I'm telling you. So this is why there is a growing consensus that if you want to feed an increasing human population, and if you want to do this without compromising the Earth ecological stability, we will not be able to do this without a radical shift in human diets away from the current heavy reliance on livestock food sources. So this is why worldwide it's advocated what is called flexitarian diets, in which the majority of our food will be originating from plants, and this will reduce, for example, also the emission of greenhouse gases by ruminants. It will reduce biodiversity loss. It will also improve human health and reduce the zoonotic risks. How can we contain tropical wild meat hunting and curbing urban wild meat demand? It's really very, very important. The first thing that is important to recognize is that wild meat plays a crucial role in local livelihood and food security. In the system, it's also mentioned that it's central economic and cultural, the central role of economic and cultural of wild meat for indigenous people and local communities is really high. Oui, c'est pour moi aussi. Donc, tu veux dire que je suis bien désolé, mais bon, voilà. C'est comme ça. Ok.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's a bit late that we are sitting. Can you stand up once? Can you stand up once? All? We are going to say our nature, our future. I'm going to count to 1, 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then when I say our nature, you see our future, our life. Okay? Our nature, our life. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Our nature. 1, 2, 3. Our nature. 1, 2, 3. Our nature. Thank you so much. You can sit. We are very disappointed about the technology. It's not be friendly for us, but I really thank you for your patience and accept this one. But we want that this session is very crucial, and then we want to talk with it, so we will postpone it tomorrow morning. We will start with this session to have our friend who will present it. Maybe because we have 2 days, even if it take us long time to try, tomorrow it will work, I promise. So we maybe Professor Nicholas can show us the and then going to show us small slide about it, and then we continue with other speakers.
Deux, trois, un, deux, trois. So I talked to my colleague. He authorized me to show the first slide that we're missing. So the idea is to rework with other technologies and to give him it be available tomorrow morning. So we are going to reshuffle. So I'm not a scientist, but we wrote this paper together on the emergence of infectious disease. So I will just show you the first slides and give you a brief explanation before delving again into the topic tomorrow. So what matters is the concept of One Health that has been put forward by the World Health Organization, and that's leading to the adoption of a treaty on One Health. So the negotiations, after much difficulties, reached a conclusion. I think it was in early June. And so the One Health concept recognized the interlinkage between animal, human, and environmental health. So my colleague mentioned the role played by Ludwig Karl Virchow, who has been the father of modern pathology and the founder of social medicine. So the idea of One Health is to expand the scope of medicine into the societies, communities, and their interaction with the environment. The fact that you have huge farms, it means that the impact is much bigger than whenever the disease is spreading through small farms. So according to my colleague, averting wildlife-borne infectious disease epidemics requires a focus on socio-ecological drivers and really to redesign the food system. And so again, that's the discussions we have recently in Europe regarding the common agricultural policy. Should we try to redesign the policy that has been really giving a lot of subsidies to the big farms, and to try to endorse more ecologically friendly agricultural measures, or should we continue to foster a very intensive fuel and chemicals intensive agriculture? As I mentioned, there has been the farmer revolution in Europe in February, March, with capital being attacked by farmers, and the politicians backtrack and they decide to lower down the level of environmental measures, the commitment, the ambitions. But again, you see the concept of one health is likely to prompt a new debate in Europe and perhaps in North America regarding this complicated interlink. So we reach here, you see the different interconnections between population growth, climate change that we will address after the break, health and well-being, consumption, production, deforestation. So we already touched upon many of these issues, many of these themes, and the speech of my colleague just confirmed the need for the public authorities and the civil societies to embrace not a sectoral approach, but to embrace a more transversal approach, where the Ministry of Health must discuss with the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Tourism must discuss with the Ministry of Environment. Risk, infectious disease risk, we need to endorse a much more transversal approach. And that has been done thanks to the European Green Deal reaching proteins in hunting wildlife in really limited on the account that the population are sparse. Quickly the big mammals disappears, the big birds as the pigeons, as the hornbills disappears, and then you don't have any more dissemination of seeds, and so that impacts the structure of the forest. So it's an additional risk. So you need the forest structures depends also upon wildlife, because wildlife disseminate the seeds. So that may be an issue that we should discuss. And so again, there is no black and white picture. Lawyers always are very gray, very nuanced. So poaching can be no problem whatsoever. Poaching all of a sudden can be a huge problem. And so the question now, as we have seen in RDC or in Nigeria or in Ivory Coast, poaching is not a question of survival for the poor population. It's taking a commercial dimension, because wealthy people in cities want to eat game because they believe for cultural reasons it's more healthy. And then that puts really pressure upon wildlife, the creation of these illegal markets. So that's discussed in the different slides. He mentioned also precaution that's enshrined in the preamble of the Convention of Biodiversity. So precautions should lead us to limit human encroachment into tropical ecosystems, promoting a global transition to diets low in livestock source food. So it means that I think that the problem is much more in Western nations, that our consumers consume too much meat, and meat production has an impact on the ecosystems. So containing tropical wild meat, urban wild meat land, while securing access for indigenous people and local communities must be the solutions. Improving biosecurity and other strategies to break zoonosis that can be, as we have seen with COVID-19 and SARS-CoV-2, extremely costly for the economy. And so to conclude, yes. So I will ask him to delve into these issues, and so tomorrow we will spend more time on the relationship between agriculture
as like a national park. So As we continue with our presentation, so as we continue, we are going to have our speaker, Dr. Richard, who is going to tell us about forest and agriculture, because we cannot talk about forest without agriculture, and agriculture is the main things here in Rwanda. So he is going to tell us more about agroecology and the other things related to agriculture and forest. Thank you.
amatsiko kubera ko prof Nicola asohotse kugira ngo mbabaze gatoya nagira ngo mbabaze gatoya ni bangahe muri mwe b'abanyeshuri ubu ngubu muri university uretse abarangiye abiga none aha ngaha 60%, eh? Okay, ababa barize muri cyaze cyitwa Isae ariko barangije kera. It's a great pleasure. Ubuse ni ngombwa gutegereza Professor Nicola. Twikomereze. I want to really express my appreciation ku bayobozi ba WCI Rugezi Center bahamagaye bariya abantu nubwo bavuga the future of forests turatekereza the future of forests as Rwandese, as Africans, nk'abantu bari muri developing country, ariko cyane cyane twe nk'abanyarwanda dushaka no kwihuta mu iterambere. So I'm looking at it from the point of view of an agrarian society, abahinzi. That's my name. I come from the University of Rwanda. I'm saying forestry and agriculture, to me, reflects into nothing more than these four practices: agroforestry, agri-silviculture, silvopastoral, and agro-silvopastoral. Forest no consume. That's my understanding of forestry. as an agriculturist or as an agricultural economist for that matter, who is passionate about rural development and accelerated transformation of livelihoods. Reka mvuge wenda starters gatoya mumve the thinking, the thought line I'm trying to refer to. We are all witnesses of the current trends, and the way the trends we see are influenced by matters to do with climate change. We know the regional context within which we operate, our continent, the other continents, the other regional economic communities, and we know the national context under which we are speaking to one another here. Rwanda context, forestry and agriculture, it is agroforestry. We are coming to examine this in a while. We'll see what it is, why it's important, why it can't be mistaken for anything else, the significance, and what so far has been achieved in our country, and what is coming next, very shortly. Then we will be able to predetermine the potential barriers and constraints, and even try and plan the way forward. Ahasigaye izindi resources zinizikenera where I wasn't able to put down all the literature that I have reviewed, but you'll be able to access them. Nasabye organizers for sharing, so that any additional material that may be required will be available to everybody at no cost at all. Climate change, we all hear about these things. We have known of the Millennium Development Goals about 15 years ago, which transformed into what we now know as Sustainable Development Goals, that runs up to 2030, just 6 years away. We now discuss things related to global challenges. Imyaka mike ishize twavugaga food and nutrition security. Later on, we are talking about climate change and the consequences associated with it, the floods, the droughts, and the recurrence of pests and diseases that we never had before. We are talking about food safety now. Food safety. Tugeze kuvuga ibintu bya residues za pests na pesticides, I'm sorry. The pandemics. Right now, we are hearing about mpox, monkeypox, just across the border. Only 2-3 years ago, we were all scared of COVID-19. And years before, we had the avian flu, swine fever, mad cow disease, BSE, and all that. You know all that. Now, in addition to that, we are witnessing global armed conflicts and protracted governance issues. I need not go beyond Africa. You only need to look a little bit northeast in the Sudan, or go northwest into the Sahel. We can as well go beyond Africa. The world is just in that mess that we see. So, but as agriculturists again, that seek to transform our economies, we are also mindful of number 3, the global trends that we are seeing across the world, and the policies shaped by the economic blocks that we know of. We know under the UN, we got the World Trade Organization. We know what is happening in the European Union. We know what's happening within the ASEAN. This is the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations. We we can easily study about all these various regional economic communities within our own continent. We have 8 of them across the continent. We in Rwanda are members of 3 regional economic communities. I guess you know that. COMESA, the East African Community, and the ECAS. ECAS is the Economic Community of Central African States. I'm sorry, my laptop keeps losing its connectivity. I'm saying, this is the last point I was mentioning, that Rwanda belongs to 3 different regional economic communities, COMESA, ESC, and the ECAS. But altogether, we understand the significance of what we mean by sustainable development. True sustainability lies in strict adherence to the requirements of these 3 triangulator aspects. The social aspect top, the environmental aspect left, the economic aspect right. Only when the 3 are taken care of in equitable manner, then that is sustainability. Without any one of those being met adequately, nothing can be done sustainably. You may pursue profits if it is not good for the socio-economic well-being of the communities. It won't last long. These are the details of this 3 or triangulate relationship of the 3 dimensions. This we call the spheres and the sectors of sustainable development. What do we mean when we say economy? You can see a number of them. What do we mean when we are talking about the well-being of society? It is many aspects. Environment, the same. Forestry belongs to one of these, but it serves so many other spheres as well. Nothing should be taken in isolation. Let's look into our own conditions now. Rwanda, agriculture. Rwanda cannot be described without mentioning the significance and the huge role that plays in the livelihoods of our people. 80% of our working population are in there. It occupies 77% total land surface area, no question about it. And the people who are involved in this sector are practicing essentially subsistence, a form of rain-fed agriculture characterized by very low productivity and very inadequate use of those we refer to as external resources, external inputs, fertilizers, good seed, pesticides, you name it. But still, despite all these difficulties and hardships, it still provides almost the entire required food for our people, 90%. And in the future, you know, the population growth, you know, the land is expanding. The same sector will have to feed this present population. About 96% of our population, the households rely almost entirely, directly of course, or indirectly, on this sector. I mean, without getting much deeper into this, you simply understand how indispensable agriculture is to our societies. And unfortunately, this doesn't apply only to Rwanda. It applies to several other African countries. It applies very much the same to all the developing countries. No need repeating this. This has been said, but a little bit of vision of the landscape that we're talking about, our agriculture. the biggest challenge we say is heavy demand of food on a very, very stressed up landscape. Topography, very steep, valleys, runoff, soil runoff. That is the context within which we operate. Leave alone agriculture is such. Think of the other aspects of general life, like cooking, wood. Annual wood deficit in our country, 9.5 million cubic meters. This was 8 years ago. US. Annual soil loss, 1.4 million tons annually. This is 6 years ago. It may be worse today, given the floods we have experienced just recently. However, we know that our government about 14 years ago committed to the bond challenge. I'm not sure everybody knows the bond challenge. The bond challenge was about the global commitments to overcome the negative consequences of climate change, including flooding and droughts, along with the other non-hydrological factors like earthquakes and landslides, things like that. And then 4 years later, the National Restoration Opportunities Assessment was conducted by the Ministry of Environment. And this is the assessment then came up with a very clear recommendation, a very clear definition that agroforestry must be understood in a sense of urgency and in a sense of indispensability if we have to move forward. So when I say agroforestry is my understanding, it is not my creation. It is based on this particular national assessment that was conducted, and conducted 10 years ago. I don't know what happened between then and now, but I don't think there is so much to be happy about. Agroforestry is everything that this assessment says can give us hope. Very last line, then, what do you think happened? We have policymakers, we have local governments, we have universities, we have civil society, we even have in each district administrative unit at the district level, we even have a joint action development forum. How far have we gone? Are we happy? I doubt if the answer will be yes. I need to look into it for a common understanding. We are saying agroforestry is not forestry. Please. I'm sorry, the forester. Agroforestry is not forestry. And agroforestry is not just about mixing agriculture with trees. No. Agroforestry can happen at a range of scales from the field and the farm through the landscapes. It depends on the kind of agroforestry you want to employ and what the objectives, what the outcomes desired are. It may involve trees within or outside the forests. It may involve trees on the farms. Most important form is integrating trees in agricultural fields or the farms and landscapes so that at least those basic requirements can be obtained. Wood for cooking, fodder for livestock, soil cover for the farms, staking, imishingiriro, ibishimbo, those little things, construction material, things like that. And there are several systems, many. But I mentioned only these four. One is that agri-silviculture, crops plus trees, several trees, tree species of choice, depending on the purpose. Could be tree species for fruits, could be tree species for imishingiriro, stakes to raise beans, could be trees for fodder to feed livestock, small livestock. I mean, several other forms. If you look at it from a global perspective, we now know that half of the entire agricultural land of the world contains over 10% actually of the tree cover, which means this practice is widespread. We are all familiar with the practices of agroforestry. One of the participants was asking earlier before lunch, how do we grow trees suitable to go around cropping? What's the issue? Even if now you go back to your home village, you will appreciate that there is actually a proposal going on within the very same household that you come from, for in one way or another. We know the value of agroforestry even in towns and in the villages. We know how much money we may obtain, or farmers, smallholder farmers obtain from sale of firewood, from sale of fodder, from sale of fruits. We know it's nothing new. The only thing that has been missing a bit is the deliberate strategy to ensure it indeed yields the benefits that we desire to see. So, as a nation, where have we come from, and what's next door? 10 years ago, the government published this National Restoration Opportunities Assessment. I mentioned that. 4 years later, the National Agroforestry Strategy is put in place. Mind you, I'm afraid only the work of the Ministry of the Environment, probably through her technical arm, REMA. I don't see any evidence of the collaborative engagement of, say, the Minister of Agriculture or the Minister of Health. I'm referring to the concept of One Health. 4 years later again, the very first in our country, STI, this is the Science, Technology and Innovation Conference, right in Kigali Convention Center. It takes place with only one focus: to leverage, to influence, to cause things to happen towards employing science, technology and innovation to mitigate the challenges associated with it and the context, of course, of environmental conservation and agriculture. Now, let me go to number 5. Only this year, actually 3 months ago, in May, the National Agroforestry Conference, met to exchange insights into, to take stock, kind of, to see how much we have done, how far we have gone. Are we happy or we are not? We need to do things a better way. I have not been able to read the report, but what I know is actually this coming month, on the 23rd and the 24th, there is a second STI conference. By the way, our calls are out now. Following this conversation today, I think it will be great to put together thinking, see what this conference is going to bring up. Maybe this time agroforestry, forests and agriculture can take a leapfrog and we move forward. This is what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, the theme is registered as being promoting climate resilient agriculture through science, technology and innovation for improved food and nutrition security. It's not mentioned anywhere. Matters to do with food safety. It's not mentioned anywhere. Things to do with market competitiveness of our produce. It's not mentioned anywhere. Climate smart practices like agroforestry. I'm not very amused about it. Maybe something needs to be recommended there. This is the time frame. It's a time frame where we come from and where we're supposed to be heading. Maybe I need not mention anything about the MDGs and SDGs and how those influence the African Union and COMESA and the Comprehensive Agricultural Program. But at least if we limit ourselves within our country, we look at 1994 up to 2008 and the 7-year program that followed and the 7-year program that followed, and this season we are ending now under NC1, National Strategy for Transformation, the policy guiding agenda for government. And under the sector of agriculture, we are talking about strategic plan for agricultural transformation. We are closing now phase 4 after phase 3 and phase 2, and the very first phase in 2000 that ended 2008. How this works with livestock, works with the Ministry of Health, I don't know. I think I know. It doesn't exist. And that is one of the reasons why we are running into barriers after barriers after barriers. One of the barriers, I'm not going to list them, to mention them all, but essentially I want to stress on this inadequacy, the inadequacy of collaboration. And actually, it's a sin for a society that seeks together to achieve big stuff in a short time. You can't have that without collaboration, without constant communication, without constant cooperation and coordination as well. So, a broad-based engagement is critical. It is conditional. Success is conditional to meeting that. Therefore, way forward, how do we go about it? I would say only 3 things. 1, our farmers are the ones actually whom we expect to implement the future we need for forests. 2, agroforestry that we are talking about. And exactly what about agroforestry? Work on farms is missing. We are working in conference halls in Kigali Convention Center. We are working in amicus threads. Of course, it's good brainstorming and planning together, but ultimately, work on farm is priority. Lastly, how do we go about it? I'm sorry, the organizer, one of the organizers just gone out, but I was mentioning about what we call a quadruple helix framework of collaboration, and I'm referring to those 4 C's. constant communication, effective collaboration, strong cooperation, and a requirement for coordination. I'm not sure if we see these in everyday workings of our communities, from the local governments, from Mudugudu, from the Murenge, to the district, to the ministerial levels. We have heard our leaders say these things are lacking and they are critical if we have to achieve anything. Therefore, here I'm saying the quadruple is about four core players. One is the farmers first, and therefore the farmers. In this country, we know under RAB, we know under NAEB, we know under the Rwanda Cooperatives Agency, we have got 16 major agri-commodity value chain. Staples under RAB and export crops under NAEB. 16 major ones. Rice, tea, wheat, potatoes, you name, you can list them all. You'll find 16 major ones. Now, where are the farm organizations? Where are the representatives of those farm organizations? We need to do it. We have no choice. Whatever we deliberate up in here, without the involvement of God. Number one is the farmers and the farms and those who work on the farm. Two is the civil society, very good presence of NGOs and international NGOs and intergovernmental agencies like Rwanda, corporates, Netherlands, corporates. Then I'm happy the universities here, about 60% of the university. And then, please help me advocate for this. Maybe we are failing to do this because we are not seeing this. We don't see the ministries working together to plan forward for anything that require a collaborative approach. In our case here, forest and agriculture, or agroforestry, as I mentioned, the Minister of Environment, yes, doing good job. But where is Minagri? Where's the Minister of Health? So Nicholas mentioned one health aspect, how plants and animals and humans and water, marine life have to be integrated with one another. Minalok, not to force farmers to do things, but to involve farmers in making decisions and being convinced that this is the right thing to be done. Maybe it's high time we sought the intervention of the Rwanda Development Board. Maybe help coordinate this coordination here. Help coordinate this collaboration. Maybe the Prime Minister's office. I don't know. It's a matter of brainstorming and seeing how best to go about it, but indeed it has to be done. Very last. I'm saying this is an illustration. I think it is an evidence, to be honest. This assessment I was talking about and all the good work that has been done by the Ministry of Environment /REMA in planting trees and great achievements. Almost 30.4% forest coverage has been achieved. That is about 700, close to 50,000 hectares. Yes, fine. But then, has this happened on the farms or it just happened in the forests? What is happening on the farms? Nothing. There is hardly anything that the Minister of Environment or that REMA can do on farm holdings without the involvement of RAB, or without the involvement of NAEB, or without the involvement of the Minister of Agriculture for that matter. Again, we know that mainstreaming agroforestry and long-term success of it will depend on the availability of these very same farmers. But do they really have the technical capacity to do it on their own? Is the district forestry officer going to speak with the farmers? How does he do that? He only has to work with agronomists at the sector level, the Dugudu level, the district level. Farmers are going to be reluctant because they know, this has been mentioned in the morning, farmers are going to be reluctant because if you ask them to grow perennial trees, they feel like, how many years do I have to wait to see this thing giving me results? Well, I don't know. This is the quadruple helix framework I'm talking about, that we cannot afford to pretend to work in isolation without one another. We have the government, the public institutions, we go the academia, we go the industry, the operators, we go the citizens, especially the citizens. I shall repeat this. I'm not the one who put this cycle here. This is the model that is adopted in the European Union. I'm not sure, but I guess Professor especially the European Research and Innovation for Climate Services has advocated so heavily for it. The European Commission for Innovation as well. In the US, it's the same. It's the way to go, whether we like it or not.
Let's clap again for Dr. Richard for a good presentation, which is very interesting. Maybe we can go with the question after the session of Marcel, because we continue talking about environmental law. We got some presentation in the morning from Professor Nicholas about Union European environmental law. So Marcela is a lawyer, so he will going to talk about those laws we really have in Rwanda about environment. So most welcome, Marcela.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marcel Rugezi. I'm a lawyer. Normally, I have been a lecturer at the university for 6 years. Thereafter, I joined Rwanda Bar Association, and now I'm a practical advocate working under the Rwanda Bar Association. And is there the Symposium on the Future Forests? Means that forests is the biodiversity which serve for the survivance of the human being. Means that it is impossible that a human being can live without the coexistence of the forest, because forests serve for the protection of the atmosphere, serve for the protection of the air used by the human being means that a human being cannot alive legal instrument, the law number 46/2024, which governing or the protection of the forests. In that law, there is theoretical framework which explain the forest and the other biodiversity which can be protected among the forest. It means that we have a forest, we have trees, we have shrubs, and we have there the product arising from the forest, but which is taken into consideration within the forest. It means that in the law there is many theories relating to the protection of the forest. Okay, so let us continue. Then my first question was why we need to protect the forest. Why? Participants, why we need to protect the forest. Why? Because most of you have heard that you are the university students, okay? So, why we need to protect the forest? Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. My name is Justin.
Yes.
I'm from NIS. Yes, as you said, and as we've seen before, we need to protect forest because for our survival. Like if we are destroying forest, we are destroying ourselves.
Okay, another point of view.
Thank you. My name is Nishime Marija. I'm coming from to protect forests, or we need to conserve forests because to conserve forest means that we will have a good life in the future. So that's why we have to say that.
Excuse me, normally in my lecture, I use the participative approach in order to interact with the participant. Then we can enjoy together the exchange of point of view.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Giringir Emmanuel
Yeah.
from the University of Rwanda in Forestry Department. We need to protect forest
Yeah.
for the biodiversity. And once we protect forest, the diversity of life which are there will be conserved. And this cannot be achieved as a single approach. It needs multidisciplinary approach so that those biodiversities interact each another. Thank you.
You're welcome. Another point of view before we proceed.
Thank you very much for your comment. So my name is Jacques Rodeman Shimne. So thank you. My name is Jacques Rodeman Shimne. I'm from MIPC. So for the point you mentioned, protecting forests, it's about like conservation, and we all know that conservation is right. Conservation is right. So we need to conserve for just future good right. That's why we need to conserve.
Okay, there is another point of view there, over there.
Okay, thank you. Again, my name is Nijena Selemani from University of Rwanda. Just as my point of view, as we conserve forest, we conserve the biodiversity. As we conserve the biodiversity sides, as biological control can also do,
we protect the forests because we've seen that the forest it's among main drivers on one health. Health, it's our blood, it's our life. When we do not protect the forests, we have seen that there will occur many diseases. We do not have the rainy fields. We do not have the agriculture. You know, it's provide the sun.
Thank you. My name is Pascal. Many of the reasons why to conserve the forests are talked. I have another point of view referring to my faculty. I do tourism, and we have tourism related to nature, which is one of biggest businesses here in Rwanda. Maybe it can be the first, but can be the second one, which is source of money in Rwanda. Not only in Rwanda, in other countries. Thank you so much.
Let us give the floor.
Okay, thank you so much. My point is that the forest is very important, not only to our life. There's the statement that I really like at the morning sessions that say that if there is no forest, there's no water. And if there is no water, no agriculture. It means that as we found that in the session of Dr. Richard, he said that the agriculture is the first things that develop our life. So it means that the forest is the essential things that we need to protect so that our life should be.
Participant and from a regulatory framework means that forests are very important to a human being. And when forests are degraded, there is a climate change which has an immediate effect on the human being. So I'm going to give two examples which happened here in Rwanda. In 2020, here in Rwanda, in Bugesera district, okay, we had a problem of climate change of that area due to the fact of degradation of forests. Means that people start leaving the district, and that time I remember the government go and to plant the tree there, and this time the district there is where it rain more than the other districts. If we can compare to the north region, and currently Bugesera is among the district which has water, is among the district which does not have any problem. But if I remember in 2020, it was really a big issue relating to the forest degradation. Another example I'm going to give to you is in a few years, the government took a decision to expropriate people around. The decision to expropriate people surrounded that forest in order to increase the value, in order to plant the tree. And currently, I think that area is among the tourist area in Gishwati due to the increasing of value of that forest. It means that forest is very important to a human being, is very important to our life. That's why we need to protect them. So let us go slightly to the regulatory framework. As I have said, the law number 46/2024 is a current law which regulates the forest. 4 points. The first point is about the protection of the forest. Why, how we can protect the forest. It means that We need to protect forests for our life. We need to protect forests by increasing the value, and also forests have important in our national economy, means that we have a benefit or advantages of protecting forests. So we can say what are the relevant provisions in that law. Means that in that law it embodied different legal provision relating to the protection of forests. Means that it is not, for instance, it is not permitted to cut the tree or to transport the tree or to use product from forest without the permission or the permit. Means that, you know, even in your suburb where you live, means that in order to cut the tree, you need to get authorization, a permit. Then, and on that permit, they need to mention which numbers of tree you need to cut and where and when you exceed the number or when it's. Means that the law provides the level of fault, okay? Means that when, and also the law provides the range where you commit an offense, and when you are guilty, you are liable for imprisonment, and also you pay fine in that law. Means that in that law, the law 46/2020, that is the current law, which is very vigorous relating to the level of forest protection. So we can ask ourselves, what are the stakeholders involved in the forest protection? What are the stakeholders? I need some point of view of the participant. Stakeholders or different organ which involved in implementation of forest protection. First of all, in the law, they provide the government entities. Means that government entities, the district, the ministry, they are the government entities which serve to the forest protection, and also which provide the master plan in order to protect the forest. Means that every year the ministry should release a master plan which serve to the forest protection. The second stakeholders, they are the private companies, okay? Means that people, different companies, okay? They are also the stakeholders. Is not benefit to the government, okay? Means that as you are a participant of this symposium, okay? You are participating to promote, to protect forests, okay? Means that this NGO is a stakeholder of the state organ. Though there is a law, but they are a stakeholder, the state organ. The first stakeholders, it is a natural person, individuals, okay? Means that everywhere we live, okay, we need to protect, we need to conserve, okay, environment which surround us, and among the environment we have forest and the trees and the product arising from the trees. Means that if we can see those stakeholders, the government organ, government entities, private companies, NGO, or natural person, if they can combine their effort, means that they can reach to a strong protection to the forest, and that protection will conserve the environment where a human being can live safely, okay? Means that the last point is about we have talked the remedies, okay? the remedies. We have talked the remedies. Means that among the remedies, I talked the 2 points. The fourth, when you breach the legal provision relating to the forest protection, means that you are liable to the administrative fine. For instance, if you cut tree without permission, means that you are liable for administrative fine. But if you transport, you cut, you transport, and you trade product from forest, means that you commit an offense. Means that when you commit an offense, you are liable for fine, and also if you are found guilty, also you can get punishment of imprisonment. Okay? Means that among the law relating to the environment protection, specifically to the forest protection, because when you talk about environment, it is a wide scope. That's why the government has classified the law relating to the biodiversity and also the law relating to the forest. And also among the forest, we have some classification. There is a state forest and also a private forest. Means that where a state can categorize some forest as a state, or where a private company can have some surface where they can plant a forest, means that they will be conserved as a private forest. Okay? I think before we conclude, I will not take time. Let us make a conclusion on that. Okay? Can you tell us the aspect we have seen relating to the forest protection?
Thank you so much. I'm Cynthia Waidejebyuma, and in conclusion, with this session, we have seen that there are a lot of reasons why we should protect the forests, where forests provide the ecosystem services like provisioning, support, culture, and regulating, and also forests are the source of life. And we have covered about the stakeholders, and what I can add is like even students, stakeholders, because ever since we are here, we are just learning, and I think we have a role in the future. Yeah, thank you so much.
Another concern talked about it's that there is a new and recent revised forest law that puts together all the regulations so that everybody who committed who committed to trade or to abuse the forest, it's punished either by fines, either or by penal administration. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I'm not the lawyer, but I need to ask the question. This is a homework for you young people. Please tomorrow come with answers. If someone from where? Nyaruguru district cutting trees in Nyungwe, and another person from the same village is cutting the eucalyptus for my neighbor here. Why the one who cut the trees, the eucalyptus from my neighbor, is high talked? Everyone talks, do you know Jean Bosco is not serious. Yesterday he cut one tree in York tree, but the one who cut the tree in Nyungwe, all will say, oh, it's not big issue because it's the government forest. Same thing happen if someone kill goat, there's another one kill antelope. Who is not serious among the both of those people and why? Thank you.
Homework.
Another point that we are to emphasize within this presentation is that forest protection needs a collaboration among bodies. It means that government entity itself cannot protect the forest. There is a need a collaboration between forest entities, private companies also, and everyone, every citizens of the country have the part they are to play so that the forest protection can be achieved. Thanks.
Are beneficial to the human being, and you have more advantages relating to our health protection. Means that by protecting forests, we are protecting our lives. Okay, that's why there should be a regulatory framework, a legal instrument which serve to protection of those forests. The second question was to know what are regulatory framework or legal instrument. We have said that we have the current law. There is a law relating to the biodiversity. We have the law relating to the forest protection and tree. We have other different law, but today we are talking to two laws. Means that the two laws serve to protect to the forest. In those laws means that we have seen different relevant legal provision, specifically the provision relating to the protection and the prohibition of exercising some activities which against the forest. And also we have seen the stakeholders which should cooperate in the forest protection. And the last, we have seen the remedies arising from the forest degradation. I think for this session, we can conclude by this. Maybe next time, if we had time, we can discuss more in respect to the topic which will be on the table of the symposium. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marcele. So let's have a round table of 10 minutes with Professor Nicholas and the lawyer Benjamin, where they can come. I need Dr. Richard. I need also director from agriculture in Burera district. I need also Olive, student from University of Rwanda. So they can come here from You have your mark there, yes. Thank you for the speakers. So we were going to have like a round table of 10 minutes discussing about the topic in the session we talk. So my first question goes to Benjamin. So we saw that there is some rules about protected areas, but we still seeing some poachers and the other activities in national parks in Rwanda. So according to your experience, what is the main causes about that?
Thank you. This is a quick question for me. I was been working in the national parks for 29 years now. Sorry for the people who was not there when I started to work in conservation. And the meantime, I was in charge of the law enforcement activities. But as they ask the question, let me go first. There are many causes. One is the culture of people. Up to now, we still have people who are not poor, but he say, I must have the meat from protected areas for those antelope and buffaloes and other things. Have those culture behavior of people who still need the meat from protected areas. Second thing is how the law is implemented. I was talking about just a few minutes back. If someone kills an antelope, is very opposite of the one who kills a goat from someone. You can see in the report from sectors or districts, the morning report, if there is someone who killed the goat or cow for the neighbors, even at the country level, in Minalok level, they know what happened in the sector. Say there is insecurity issues. But if 10 buffaloes were killed in Kinigi, no one cannot say the story. Because they not give the value to wildlife the same as livestock. This is the second reason. And the last one is what? The number of people involved in law enforcement activity in protected areas. Simple example. You can find many people are guides, tourist guide, but to have few number of people involved in law enforcement activities. And you can find in the patrol post, let me take the example, you have like 10 rangers. If you look at the area those people must cover for law enforcement activities, it's very big. And even as a conservation people, sorry for the conservation team, the many conservation team ask, how many tourists was in the Volcano National Park today? How much money we generate in this year? But you cannot find someone who asks, can you tell me how many snares was removed in the Volcano National Park at high level people? They don't mind. They give money value than the conservation aspect. Lastly, many people are put money, invest in income generating activities where around the Volcano National Park you can find the hotel. You spending one night in those hotel, you must have at least 5,000 USD. How many people is investing to protect the Volcano National Park? They are not interested, but they are interested what can gain from the volcano, not what can invest to protect the Volcano National Park. Thanks.
Thank you so much. It's interesting, Benjamin. You can clap for him. Yeah. It give me. I'm wondering, Professor Nicholas, how do you do you think? Do you have like poachers activities in Europe, and there is a, because here there is some law. I will come to Marcel after you. Those law are in Europe. There is something that you do for someone who against forest or other animals related in the protected areas, and there is some activity you see there against forest.
Yes, commercial poaching is a serious problem in different countries. Also, in addition to this ignorance among hunters that can shoot rare species or protected species. And the main challenge for the authorities is the enforcement, is the control. So for instance, in Wallonia, southern Belgium, more than 50% of the territory is covered by forest, and it's difficult to control at night trucks using spotlights and really indulging into commercial poaching. So I'm of the view that poaching is not an issue of subsistence, but it's an issue of greed, of finding markets. I think to make matters worse, mafias that are quite potent throughout Europe, be it the Israeli mafia, the Turkish mafia, the Moroccan mafias, they are aware that it's far less risky to get involved in wildlife trafficking than in the drug trafficking. Criminal courts are much more severe with respect to criminals trafficking prohibited drugs than criminals trafficking in wildlife products or wildlife specimens. And again, this is an issue of culture. So I've been taking part in training magistrates to raise the awareness of the environmental criminality. It's a bit in rich countries, be it in poor countries, such as Rwanda, there is always an issue of greed and an issue of individuals that cannot abide by the law, that will take always advantage of the weakness of the law. I would like to comment our colleague. In Europe, regarding water management, we have been developing or trying to put forward a principle called the user pays principle. So yes, it is partly applied with respect to the visit of tourists here. Tourists pay tax, and that's boosting the economy. So the idea is that whenever individuals or corporations take advantage of resources, they have to contribute financially to the use, covering enforcement issues, monitoring issues, administrative issues, not just to complement.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Nicolas. Marcelin, you told us about the lawyer, then there is the law that you put there about someone who can be against forest, cutting trees or damaging other animals with the animals. But there is some cases you see people who get it, and then there is some of them who are in prison, or you see them, there is a month only, and then you leave the case. So there is a law which is very defined about it.
Thank you. As you have said, and also one of the participants have commented, means that in the law enforcement there is a kind of negligence and ignorance. Means that for the law enforcement it requires what I can say, the awareness for the people and the other stakeholders relating to the punishment of the offense committed against the forest, environment, trees, and the other biodiversity. We have a criminal code. Means that a criminal code is someone who commits an offense against a biodiversity which included the forest trees and the other product means that is punishable. Unfortunately, though we have some cases, but they are still few. Means that, as the participant has said, this does not mean that there is no people who commit an offense against forest or other biodiversity. But the case which are identified and the people or the criminals are prostituted are still few because of that ignorance. That's why for the law enforcement, we still have to make the awareness, the what I can say, the sensibilization of the people to know the importance of the ecosystem, biodiversity, in order to have a strong legal framework which abide by the citizen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Olive, as a student, do you think what the lawyers and the government are doing, all the policies, what do you think as student, they are doing the right things, or there is something they can add in 1 minute only?
Okay, thank you so much, moderator. I think it's an amazing opportunity to us as a student, as young generations, to gain this insight, to gain this knowledge, because it helps us to know more a lot about the protection of environment and even the forest. So first of all, we appreciate for that. I think you can give the round of process so that they can, because it's really amazing. So, and another point I can add, the areas, and it's really amazing because most of us, for example, I'm studying agriculture, and other is from IPRS, and other from UTAB. We live in different areas, and we need to conserve those natures around where we are living. Means everywhere we live, we can just commit, we can be ambassadors to any place we live, so that anyone here can be like five person around him or her can just do something from now, can share what he gained from here. I think you understand that point.
Yes.
So means that, for example, if I get this opportunity to join, to know the lot of policymakers, and even there's some roles, why do we need to protect environment? Why do we need to protect the forest? You are the one. It starts from ourselves. It starts from you. Because as well as you don't understand that point, I don't know how you will explain to other people. So that's why, if you are 50 students from here, from Musanze district, from Nyabihu, from everywhere, you are the ambassador to say what you gained from here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you think those policies that they make, they will be, or they not act when there is something happen to, for example, cut the trees? For your experience, do you see someone who is putting the prison because they're cutting the trees?
Thank you for that. Actually, we have some environmental club, and we are the one who practices in just to avoid those people who cutting trees. Actually,
You are doing mobilization, but
yes, mobilization, awareness everywhere, so that we can prevent those people who should cut trees.
Okay, thank you so much.
Welcome.
So, Dr. Richard, you said that agroforests are not a forest. So people are asking, so what if not agroforests are not a forest? What is that?
Thank you very much for that question. So, I think the matter we have at hand is broader than just that. It's unfortunate from my experience and understanding that environmental conservation in my community in Rwanda and surrounding countries has been translated into forests. And this is unfortunate. because the environment is not just about forests. The environment is me and you and the bird and the farm and the water bodies and so the interaction is the totality of it all.
Yeah.
So as I outlined the positive trends that have taken place so far between 2014 and today at a governmental level, beginning with the assessment that was conducted by the Minister of Environment through the Rwanda Environmental Management Authority, to the drafting and enacting of the strategic plan for environmental protection, the assessment that singled out the appropriate agroforestry as an option, as not an option, but the only way to go forward, in itself distinguishes forestry and agriculture, the growing of trees, the raising of livestock, the protection of wildlife, the protection of aquatic life, as what constitutes environmental conservation. But knowing that the Rwandan community is an agrarian community whose role is expected to be reflected in what they do, that is agriculture for a living, agroforestry is the way to go. So when we speak of environmental conservation in Rwanda, in Rwandan setting, where agriculture forms the basis of life, forests, yes. After all, a good part of the job has been done, but on the farms, no. And who is supposed to be there? Fortunately, in every district, there is a Directorate of Agriculture and Natural Resources Management. The director is the supervisor of both the agronomists and the forest officers. So, it should be an easy thing to do. Why it is not happening is not a big issue.
Yeah.
The issue is what needs to be done now.
Yeah.
That's why I drove into that quadruple helix framework of collaboration, coordination, and a never-ending scenario, actually. And the area we start much better.
Thank you, Dr. Richard. We have someone from Burera district as an environmental director. So we are working with local communities, especially the farmers. We are give them Graveria, Arinus, accumulata about those agroforests they have to put in their crops. So what do you think, to the point of Dr. Richard? We really continue to emphasize for giving them those trees without focusing to others biodiversity, or what do you think?
Arakoze cyane, arambajije ati nka directeur ushinzwe ubuhinzi n'ibidukikije, muratanga biti binyuranye, marinusi, greveria, se muzakomeza kubitanga mutitaye ku rundi rusobe rw'ibinyabizima? Arakoze cyane. Ngiye misemo kuvuga mu Kinyarwanda kugira ngo misobanure neza, undi nguresha Igifaransa to n'Icyongereza ndakivuga, ariko ndagira ngo nemphasize kuri ibi bintu, garagaza iki kintu. Biragaragara koko ubushakashatsi bumaze kugaragara. Iriya conference Symposium iherutse, National Conference on Agroforestry, yagaragaje ko ibiti biterwa, ubushakashatsi bwagaragaje ko ibiti biterwa 40% ari byo survive, noneho turi mu kwibaza abantu bose bashyizemo imbaraga, leta yashyizemo imbaraga, partners bashyizemo imbaraga, ni iyihe mpamvu, ni uruhe ruhare rwa buri wese kuki bidasurvive? Nanjye umaze imyaka 9 nkorana n'abahinzi muri agroforestry, muri forestry hari challenge zagaragara. Ubushakashatsi bw'ibiti dutera ni buke cyane urebye ukurikije ubushakashatsi bukorwa mu buhinzi bw'ibiribwa, ibigori bishyashya, imbuto z'ingano nshyashya, ibirayi bishyashya. Ubwo rero hakenewe muri rusange synergy ku rwego rwa guverinoma, rw'abapartners, abafatanyabikorwa nyine mu bidukikije, gushyira imbaraga namwe za kaminuza, abanyeshuri, kugaragaza n'andi ma species abaturage bakeneye. Kuko impamvu abaturage bagaragaje twebwe tugenda tubona impamvu they plant but they do not grow, as I've seen. Ntibabyitaho, biraterwa ejo bigapfa. Kubera iki? Umuturage ntabona icyo twita direct benefits kuri we. Arabona igiti cy'umusave cyatewe hariya inshuro nyinshi n'ibindi, ababiteye bo bazi yuko bishakira carbon kurengera ibidukikije. Ariko umuturage umuhinzi hariya carbon ntazi n'ikimaze, ntazi kirengera ikirere. So ubushakashatsi rero burakwiye ko dutangira kureba byibura twebwe ndi muri iyo nama natanze igitekerezo byibura 60% by'ibiti biterwa mu myaka agroforestry bibe ari ibiti bitanga direct interest cyangwa benefit, bitanga inyungu ku muhinzi ahita zibona. Urugero, imbuto ziribwa ariyo twise fruits, agro fruits based system, ko twayirekomendinze. Icya kabiri, bya biti bizana imishingiriro umuturage ko ni ikibazo afite, arashaka guhinga ibishyimbo atiriwe bizagabanya gutema amashyamba. Example hiyo twita acacia ngitsima, na mashirabu agira amatiteri meje. Ibyo ubwe aranabishaka kanabigura. Murabizi kuntu birirwa baguriye. Icyo gihe ntazi igitazakita. Ariko numuzanira anusa kiminata, kamuzanira greveria, kamuzanira n'izindi species gusa. Yes. Ikindi kizatuma bisucceeding. Aba partners, abafatanyabikorwa, dutangize ziriya gahunda zo kugrowing igiti based incentives. Umuhinzi yes, abafatanyabikorwa bari mu gutera ibiti bagahabwa amafaranga ya carbon. Umuhinzi nayaboneho ku mwaka ibiti 100 yateye ajya bibonera amafaranga runaka. Icyanyuma, ubuhinzi bwateye imbere mu byerekeranye agriculture extension, community agriculture extension. Ese dufite abafasha myumvire mu mashyamba, ku mudugudu, ku murenge, ku kagari, kuki mu buzima bahari, mu bworozi twarabatangije, mu buhinzi twarabatangije. Ishyamba, agroforestry nibihari. Uziko tutagira bakanyamashyamba b'imirenge, uziko batari kuri structure y'abakozi ba leta ku rwego rw'igihugu, bahembwa nk'abanyakabisi. Buri mwaka tubasinyisha contract, kandi yiganye na engineer forestier as na agronomist. Kuki leta bigitayibona? Abafatanyabikorwa babibone, bashyiremo incentives na front lines extension in the forest. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for a good point, talking about research. Yes. And last one here saying about focusing on research, all the things they really want to do, focusing on research. But when you see human research, they depend on a benefit. Benjamin, as work in conservation, why people always, in a few minutes, they think themselves as human, they not see the benefit of other wildlife. So they say all the research they do, they want to be benefit on them. If, for example, the monkey will have to attend this symposium or other policies, so why human always the research they do, they want their benefit? Do you think it will benefit to wildlife for all the protected areas.
Thank you. I think they still have an issue about what exactly the research people are doing and the recommendation from research and who benefit the result from research. Today, even you young people who are here, you read the report, the research, the result of research for your own benefit. It's true. Yes, this is a reality. You read specialize the recommendation and say, this is a good one for me. I can use this recommendation for me. I need to come in Musanze district to help the communities to know where to put those bottles. Going to REMA or UNDP and they have money. How much do you give to those communities, those people who are collecting those bottles? We found that the researchers and the other many people that are doing the research or using the research result for their own benefit. This is the way the community come in and ask, do you know, the second time I cannot respond to those researchers. I'm tired. 2 years back, someone come. Do you get the benefit from the protected areas? They say yes. No, say no. Now, after no, don't give the recommendation, don't put more effort to change the answer for the 2 years come, where now the one who say yes, no, can now say, now, I'm okay. Thank you. Now, yes. Let's put more effort to communities and have the response, the answer to the yes, have the benefit, yes, not having the no. No one not contribute to conservation of biodiversity. Let me give the one example. The 10% what the Rwanda government decided to give the communities, the revenue sharing. Do you know the revenue sharing scheme where the 10% from tourism is going to communities? We still have the question. Do you know what happened? The communities who are not member of the cooperative, the answer said, cooperative members benefit more than me. And if you ask, why are not member of the cooperative? And say, no, the contribution is the capital. I don't have to be member of those cooperative. They ask for money to me. And the NASA research will be coming after 3 years, asking same question. As the moderator asked, the question is, why the communities are not the target group? In Kinyarwanda we say umuturage kwisonga. Can we have the conservation umuturage kwisonga approach? If not, you will have umunyeshuri kwisonga in conservation or umushakashatsi kwisonga. This is the case up to now. Let's change now and have those community on top of conservation benefit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. So lastly, Professor Nicholas. Okay. Let's finish with Olive. We have a problem of post-harvest issues. Do you know post-harvest?
Yes, I know.
Okay. So we have a problem of climate change, and then we have also the post-harvest. So what do you think the government of Rwanda or other can do in post-harvest issues?
Okay, thank you. It's not easy questions because it's really needed to think about it so that we can recommend something that it's really being implemented. So I think I can take a time and think about it and then I respond it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's clap for our speakers. And then we take the last session. Yeah, we can go to the seat. can stand and stretch once. Stand up. If you are happy for session, clap. If you are happy, raise one arm. If you are happy, raise the right arm. If you are happy, say good evening to your behind people. Our nature? Our nature? Thank you. Let's have like a last session for two representatives and then we finish. We go take a coffee break and then don't leave this room without seeing Mr. Safari. He's behind there.
Yes. Hello. 1, 2, 3. Does it work? Yes. Yes, so I will address two issues. The relationship between the biodiversity crisis and the climate change crisis. That's being more and more explored by scientists, but that has not been yet really commented upon by lawyers. And then I'll shift into two mechanisms regarding the funding of project and national approach regarding carbon storage, in particular thanks to forests and peatlands and wetlands. This is known as the CDM mechanism and the RED Plus mechanism. So my first speech shall underbrate rather general issues, whereas my second speech will tackle much more technical and complicated issues that are mostly regulated by soft law instruments and not by hard law instruments. Regarding climate change and biodiversity, it seems that these two issues are interconnected. As a main driver for biodiversity loss, the climate change has implications for biodiversity as well as for ecosystems. In turn, and that's really an important matter, conserving biodiversity, conserving forests, can foster climate change mitigation measures, in particular thanks to carbon sinks. So the biodiversity policy is likely to go hand in hand with climate change mitigation and prevention measures, where around half of the emissions of CO2 remain in the atmosphere. One has to be aware that the other half is captured, is absorbed by land and oceans, and in particular forests play a key role in absorbing the CO2 that we are emitting. So for instance, a Belgian, one of my countrymen, and the average countryman in my country will emit an average of 9 tons CO2 a year. I imagine that the figure for Rwanda is about 1.5 tons, 2 tons. So we have a much bigger impact. But thanks to the Belgian forest, 500 kilos of CO2 is likely to be absorbed by our ecosystem. So the fact that we are obliged to achieve climate neutrality by 2050, according to the law on climate neutrality, will oblige us to develop a new approach regarding forestry and to improve the management of our forestry to leave more old trees that are likely to capture, to absorb more CO2. So again, the climate change factor is likely to lead to some improvement when it comes to the integration of biodiversity into forestry practices. This is an image from the United Nations highlighting the risks that climate change entails for mammals. We are getting close to an increase, a global increase of 1.4 degrees Celsius across the planet against the 1860 background. But according to the IPCC, there are different scenarios. The worst case scenario is an increase at the end of the century of 3.54 degrees Celsius, always against the 1860 background, or in case we succeed in implementing a genuine climate change mitigation policies, we could halt the increase up to 2 degrees. And that's the 2015 Paris Agreement objective, is to oblige the states not to exceed the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold. But even with a 1.5 Celsius threshold, 8% of the mammals are likely to lose their habitats, and without habitats there is no change to survive. But the figure gets much more dramatic with the increase by 3 degrees Celsius. And these last months, more and more climatologists have been publishing articles highlighting that actually with the current policies, with the current economic patterns, we are likely to face by 2060, 2070, the worst case scenario. From an international perspective, on the one hand, I comment upon the 1992 Convention on Biodiversity. I stress the vagueness, the imprecisions. And on the other hand, I stress also that in 1992, along the same lines, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was adopted. That's also a framework convention that has been supplemented by the Kyoto Protocol, which has been mostly obliging industrialized nations to diminish, to minimize, to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. But the Kyoto Protocol has been somewhat replaced by the 2015 Paris Agreement, which is a kind of loose instrument requiring the states to endorse national strategies to submit to the Conference of the Party of the UNFCCC programming regarding the abatement of the greenhouse gas emissions, but without obliging anybody to abide by a specific threshold. So it means that each national strategy differs. Some national strategies, the EU ones, is much more ambitious on the account that the EU is the only body on this planet wanting to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. So what are the synergies and convergence between these two key instruments? In a nutshell, they do provide for significant different regimes. In particular, there is no interlinkage between these two treaties, to which about 196, 195 states on this planet are parties. With respect to the issues of interaction between climate change and biodiversity, the literature is stressing that the Biodiversity Secretariat has been much more dynamic than the UNFCCC Secretariat in dealing with biodiversity issues. And that's a bit of a contradiction, because I invite you, in particular students, to look at the executive report, the last October report regarding climate change. So you look at the executive report. So if you have patience enough, please look also at the main chapters, much longer and more complex to grapple with. But the executive report stressed the importance of biodiversity as a key component to mitigate and to adapt to climate change. And if one looks at the UNFCCC conventions, there are the two notions that are defined: reservoir, sinks, and there is this objective to promote sustainable management and promote cooperation in conservation of sinks and reservoirs of all greenhouse gases. So scientists have been highlighting the importance of peatlands, wetland, as well as old-growth forest in acting as sinks and as reservoirs. So although the EU is quite ambitious in achieving climate neutrality by 2050, there will always be greenhouse gas emissions for industrial or consumer activities, and these reservoirs, these things, should play a key role in absorbing the extra emissions. So the question is whether the peatlands, the wetlands, the forest, the old-growth forest in Europe will be sufficient to absorb the extra emissions that we don't succeed to abate, or whether the European Union and the member states of the European Union should try to entice countries with tropical forests, countries with peatlands, such as Rwanda, to enhance the conservation of the forest, because the climate crisis is a global crisis. And maybe the solution doesn't lie in Europe only, and it's a worldwide solution. The 2015 Paris Agreement has a stronger, more robust language when it comes to protection of biodiversity. The preamble notes the importance of the integrity of all ecosystems and the protection of biodiversity. Article 5.1 obliges parties to take actions to conserve and enhance sinks and reservoirs, including forests. So for the very first time in 2015, forests are being listed as a major component for the sinks and the greenhouse gas reservoirs. I mentioned the COP10 of the Convention of the on biodiversity regarding biodiversity and climate change. It's a rather loose language regarding the climatic stress and the impact on biodiversity, but in contrast to the coming Montreal targets, and I remember the 30% protected areas on the national territories and national waters, as well as 30% effective restoration by 2030, so it's really ambitious targets. The language is rather loose at this stage. Ecosystem-based approach are emphasized as a remedy to the crisis. So forests indeed do consist in reservoirs, but also as a source of CO2. So in case forests are burned, charcoal is being produced, and I've seen that a bit everywhere since these last 3 weeks. Charcoal production emits a huge amount of CO2 into the atmosphere. So tropical deforestation appears to be a major source of CO2 emissions. In case tropical deforestation is worsened, and that's the case happening today according to scientists in RDC, the clock is ticking. I'm getting close to retirement. You are young, and you are going to face all these challenges. So I think deforestation could be beneficial for both the climate change policy and the biodiversity policy. So the matter is to get into a win-win solution, to find the conciliation, the cross-fertilization between two policies, although the two major legal instruments of 1992 don't emphasize the interlinkage. So it's the question of how to move forward. is it only through non-binding instruments and their weakness, or is it through treaties that have been ratified and concluded by 196 states? And the difficulty is that you need unanimity to modify the agreements. So that's I've seen a number of peatlands in the country, in Uganda. Peatlands cover only 3% of the world's land, but they absorb twice as much carbon as the forest. So the potential regarding climate change mitigation of the peatlands in Rwanda is tremendous. And I will go back to this issue. So conserving forests clearly prevents and mitigates climate change risk. However, there is no clear links between the two major instruments, and it's really the work of secretariats, in particular the Secretariat. But I would like to emphasize the importance of the analysis carried out by the IPCC, the scientific body of the Secretariat of the UNFCCC Convention. So I shift to the topic, which is much more technical, so to speak. So the Kyoto Protocol, the protocol is an international treaty. A protocol is an additional treaty to a framework convention. So the 1992 convention is kind of umbrella conventions laying down the major obligations, and it has been complemented by the Kyoto Protocol that has been providing for this clean development mechanism. And this clean development mechanism are being replaced by the RED Plus mechanism. So my analysis will unfold around three issues: the CDM mechanism, their strength and their weakness; the RED Plus mechanism that received much attention today; and finally the AFOLU, so agriculture, forestry, and other land use, and that's related to the different issues we talked about. So the Kyoto Protocol has been obliging the EU, Canada, industrialized nations to abate their greenhouse emissions, mostly from industries, from energy production. Although these obligations were quite costly, the parties have been negotiating the possibilities to invest in developed countries projects that's giving rise to greenhouse gas abatement. So the idea is to get to the cheapest option, given that climate change is a global crisis. So the fact of reducing greenhouse gas emissions in Congo or in Gabon makes sense, and from an economic point of view, it might be much cheaper than to do it in a cement kiln plant or in a pulp factory or in a steel mill in Belgium or in Luxembourg. So the idea is that the developed country receives certificate emission reductions for the abatement taking place in Congo or in Gabon, and the CRS can be traded on market CO2 market schemes. The biggest market is the one of the EU. The idea of this CDM mechanism is to have an additional value, so it's to be much more effective regarding finance, and to avoid leakage. It means that in case a project of reforestation or a prevention of deforestation is taking place somewhere, that should not lead the local communities to cut down the trees of the forest next door. So the fact of conserving or protecting a forest, or to set aside a forest as a national park or nature sanctuary, should not lead the local farmers to get rid of the local peatlands. And of course, this is a complicated issue. The CDM requires the host countries, so Congo, Gabon, Angola, to confirm that the CDM projects comply with national legislation and comply with their sustainable development policy. So the project managers, so the companies, Western companies, American, European companies, or Chinese companies investing in this project, must demonstrate the added value of the projects taking place in the host country. So the question is whether these projects are reliable, whether they do not cause kind of spillover effects in leading to extra damage. So the rationale is an economic rationale. It's to implement project where the cost is the least. Most of the market for the CDMs came from European countries that were subject to more stringent obligations regarding the abatement of industrial greenhouse gas emissions. So European companies have been investing in this CDM project, and the project is so successful that the ECR value has been falling from around 10 euros a ton of CO2 to 0.50 cents a ton of CO2. So the system has been the victim of its own success, so to say. So this is the place where the projects have been taking place. So most of the projects were carried out in Asia or in Brazil and not in Africa. CDM has also been providing actions regarding afforestation and reforestation, so we discussed that. But nevertheless, it has been giving rise to controversies. So there's been different safeguards clause to avoid that old growth forests are being replaced by plantations being labeled as CDM projects. So this is a primary forest along the borders of RDC. So the risk entailed by CDMs have been really widely discussed in the literature, and the risk as companies are likely to favor monoculture instead of protecting old growth forests because it's much more valuable than conserving old trees. So given the unsatisfied nature of CDM, Western states have been pushing for this reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, called the UN RED or RED Plus. So at the outset, the RED Plus were based upon a specific project, so that forest being reforested or being protected. However, the parties realized that it was giving rise to too much spillover effects, and they decided to endorse a national approach. So the countries taking part to RED Plus are obliged to enact a national strategy or action plan, and that national strategy must lay down a national forest reference emissions level, and the system can work in as much, or can be credible in as much, so long as you have monitoring not from locals, not from national experts, but from international, from a roster of international experts, and that there is these experts are shifting at the different stage of the monitoring and the assessment. So the question is that one is ready to invest money, be it a corporation, be it a state such as Belgium and Luxembourg, so long as the project makes sense from a climate and a biodiversity point of view. And the project will be credible in as much as there is independent monitoring. So again, that's giving rise to this issue of good governance. a country without good governance that's plagued with corruptions and fraud cannot really achieve this. And so that's really the independence of monitoring and assessment that plays a role in making the scheme credible. REDD Plus has been reframed in Warsaw in 2013 in the COP of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It's a bloody complex scheme because it encompasses 7 decisions adopted by the Conference of the Parties of the Framework Convention. And so the idea has been, the rationale has been to enhance the capacity building, to give technical assistance to the developed countries, and to have result-based finance. So result-based finance is that the host countries get the finance in as much as it demonstrates that the project yield to purpose results regarding greenhouse gas abatement. So the evidence has to be brought to the conference of the parties that the scheme is working. So I stress this is based upon national programming, national strategy that requires monitoring and reporting to the conference of the parties, and technical assessment process that enhance the credibility of the scheme. According to the legal literature, REDD Plus is not specified or is not enshrined as such in the Paris Agreement. However, paragraph 2 of the Article 5 of the Paris Agreement refers to the need to enhance reservoirs and sinks, as I highlighted earlier in my speech. Parties are accordingly, parties to the Paris Agreement are encouraged to include REDD Plus activities in their national plans that they submit to the Conference of the Parties. So every 2 years, the parties have to submit their objective, their plans, the manner in which they are going to achieve their reduction objective of reduction of 50 or 60% by 2030 or by 2040. And so what matters is that these national strategies are part, are a component of the NDCs that's being submitted to. So the importance of REDD Plus has been emphasized in the first global survey. In a decision they emphasized that the result-based payment is functioning. However, there are always challenges because it's difficult to assess worldwide with a number of strategies across the board whether some projects are not giving rise to leakage. Another weakness is that nothing obliges developed countries to develop REDD Plus strategy or REDD Plus programming. So the issue is today to integrate biodiversity issue into the REDD Plus. So there are different safeguards that have been developed by the United Nations body. The first safeguard is the program on social and environmental principles to avoid that REDD Plus activities impair the rights of indigenous people. The second approach is the one endorsed by the one of the major fund, the World Bank Fund, the Green Fund of the World Bank, that has been developed in the Forest Carbon Partnership Facility. And then bilateral agreements, cooperation agreement between Belgium and Congo, or Norway and Nigeria are likely to encompass, to encapsulate kind of REDD Plus obligations. So Firstly, the social and environmental principles developed by the United Nations. So it's safeguard in order to protect or to avoid risk. So do not harm while promoting benefits to goods. So the issue is to provide for effective participation of relevant stakeholders. So we already discussed time and again the manner in which farmers must be involved in conceiving the reforestation policy or the agroforestry. It's important to convince the farmers of the salience of such an approach. Not workable. And so the issue is to integrate indigenous communities in defining these policies. Of course, from a cultural point of view or from an anthropological point of view, this is not an issue, an easy matter, as you are aware, because most of the indigenous communities do not share the same type of knowledge than the designers of these REDD+ schemes. So that really requires an anthropological work to take into consideration the abilities of these communities to support the REDD+ schemes, to avoid that forests are being reforested and nevertheless they are being cut down by local communities. Besides, the World Bank has been developing this forest carbon partnership facility, which is really the major financing mechanism so far. And this fund is assisting 47 countries across Africa, Asia Pacific, Latin America, and the Caribbean in developing their REDD+ strategies and in implementing. So the know-how, the technical implementation is likely to be supported by the fund of the World Bank. Actually, the FCPF encapsulate two funds. The readiness fund, so it's a more preparation fund, so it's to allow the countries to develop its strategy, and the carbon fund. So the readiness fund has been helping 47 developed countries. So the World Bank has been concluding agreements with 47 countries to entice them to take part in these schemes, whereas the carbon fund, which is really a result-based payment, has been limited to only 15 countries. Most of the finance coming so far from international public funds, such as the World Bank or the EU or USAID. However, this is insufficient with respect to the global challenges we face. And so the issue is how to entice